Hi, this is Rose, and you are listening to the Sovereign Soul podcast. I support awakening souls to live beyond their ego and limitations so that they can know true freedom. In today's episode, I want to talk about relationships and more particularly how we respond to unconsciousness in other people. So when we get triggered by other people, how can we, let's say, avoid it? I don't know if you can entirely avoid being triggered at all, but how do you deal with it? How do you at least minimize that effect? The reason why I want to talk about this is that I have noticed that this subject gets the most hits, like on my blog and also on my YouTube channel. I've only made one blog, one video about it, but it seems to be something that people want to know. Like, how do you deal with the unconsciousness of other people? Quite often when a person is awakening, it becomes glaringly obvious when other people are fast asleep. I personally believe that if you are having a absolute spiritual awakening, you're not going to be so put off by other people's unconsciousness. It's not going to exhaust you. I actually think it awakens deep compassion and understanding for that asleep part of others, because you yourself were fast asleep before. So for me, it actually changed that relationship for me with other people's unconsciousness and fast asleepness. Not for everybody. I'm not a perfect person, so please, I still get triggered and I will still have reactions. So it's not that I am perfect, but I have a lot less and I'm a lot more aware of my reactions and responses and my triggers, or should I say, as to why I'm triggered. And I know how to use that to help me so that in the future I don't need to be triggered by that again. And this, to me, is the reason why we're triggered in the first place. So we have to look at the situation and ask ourselves, first and foremost, why is this triggering me? Because it's actually got nothing to do with the other person. More than likely, it has to do with the expectations that you have of that person. And if you're being judgmental to their reactions or their behavior, you've got to ask yourself, okay, but what about their reactions and behaviors make you feel like you have a right to judge them? Because that in itself is a form of, if I can say, inequality, either thinking that you're better than them, you don't behave that way, or you can't even see that you yourself have been unconscious in your own life to be able to give that grace. I do not advocate abusive and toxic relationships. So when I talk about giving something grace, I talk about it if you're in a healthy relationship, and also if you can energetically distance yourself from that circumstance. So you can distance yourself from someone else's toxicity. You're not going to put yourself in the line of fire purposefully. But grace is also something that needs to go hand in hand with acceptance. Our inability to accept somebody else as they are is actually a form, what's the opposite, should I say, of unconditional love. I do not believe that unconditional love means staying no matter what somebody else is doing and how they treat you and how toxic and dysfunctional they are. That's not unconditional at all. If anything, that is massively abusive towards yourself. And unconditional love has to go two ways. But if somebody is massively toxic and dysfunctional and you can see it, acknowledge it, accept it, not need to change it, but actually choose to take yourself out of that line of fire so that you never need to be a part of it again. You're not asking that person to be different. You're just saying, Okay, cool. That's your way. It's not mine. I'm gonna move out of the line of fire here. And also I'm no longer giving you that other that avenue for you to be able to abuse me. So that's what I think we need to do when it comes to abusive, toxic, really dysfunctional relationships. We need to be able to remove ourselves, but also expect them to be who they are and accept them to be who they are. And that right there, that's the gold. So, with other relationships, no matter what they are, no matter how you're interacting, whether it's got to be a teller at the shop, or whether it's your work colleague or just an acquaintance, or maybe it's a close friend, maybe it's a lover, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a family member or parent. It doesn't matter who they are. If you are triggered by their behavior because you think that they should behave in a different way, that's on you. It's got nothing to do with them. Number one, you're not being accepting of them. You're basically putting these conditions on, saying, hey, I'm not okay when you behave as you behave, and it's your fault that I'm frustrated or irritated or need you to be different. That's really the message you're giving. Because if somebody else treats you that way and makes you emotionally responsible for their reactions, they too are not taking responsibility for themselves. And the only way to take responsibility for yourself is to go, hey, this is my trigger. These are my expectations. They are massively unrealistic based on fact. And that fact is based on how that person behaves. So if that person shows you their way, you have to accept their way. If you're going to constantly be pushing against their way, you're always going to be making them feel like they are not good enough, just as you would feel if you were in the same situation. And sure, it might even be a complete stranger, but taking offense to somebody else who we don't even know, we've got to ask ourselves, why would we be so sensitive to think that somebody else is purposefully trying to piss us off when they don't even fucking know who we are? Surely it would be better to just assume that they're having a hard day. It's got nothing to do with you. And actually, the truth is, nobody's behavior has got anything to do with you. It's generally always going to be about them, just as our behavior is always about us. So, let me wrap this up. If you want to deal with unconscious people in a conscious way, be accepting of that person. Expect them to be who they are, not what you want them to be. And if they're a complete stranger, give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think we should generally give people the benefit of the doubt, especially, like I say, and I keep reiterating, as long as it's not toxic or dysfunctional and abusive. And I think that we can gauge pretty clearly when something is toxic, abusive, and dysfunctional. Okay, if you have any questions, please, by all means, contact me. I know that this is something that people really struggle with because we are not taught to take responsibility for our own emotions, and that it's our own emotions when we're triggered, and that our expectations of something else are actually the reason for the triggers, more than likely, or perhaps we're projecting something onto someone else. So if you would like to know more about how to grow in your own awareness so that you can be less triggered and understand your triggers better, I would also love to hear from you. I have a ton of free resources, and you have to contact me to get them. I'm not into automation or anything like that. I much prefer connection. And yeah, and then that way I'll be able to help you, or at least send you something so that you can begin to help yourself if it's something that you do want to explore further. Okay, thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next one.